Hey everyone, welcome to the episode 21 of the Office Hours podcast. Here's a little brief of all the different things we're going to be talking about tonight. We had a chance to talk a little bit about AI, AGI, and UI, which I believe stands for Uploaded Intelligence, which is an interesting thing that has been described very broadly in science fiction and whatnot. And we have a chance to talk about all of these things and how they affect our life or how they could potentially affect our life in the future. We talked about a bunch about science fiction. We talked a little bit about what sort of humanity benefiting thing you could do if you were to spend $1 million right away. And so, if you're interested in all of these topics, please stick with us and see where this goes. Thank you very much and hoping you'll enjoy. Hello and welcome to the episode 21 of the Office Hours podcast. We'd like to welcome back Mo and let's get into it. How you been, Mo?
Good. And you?
Doing well. Adjusting slowly. Doing well otherwise. Yeah. A little bit better than last week, so good trend. I like the direction in which it's going.
That's good. I was actually gonna ask you um how you feel being back home now. You were away for a while, and
Mm.
then I guess are you slowly getting to your routine, or that how's it feeling for you?
Yeah, I would say I'm slowly getting back. I'm trying, to get my routine back in order. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult here because, out there I didn't really have really anything to do, more or less. So it was very, very repetitive. But it also meant that, no or very few distractions makes it much easier to stick to your routine and schedule. So now that I'm back home, I have my, big gaming rig, this and that, and TV and all of the things. It definitely proves to be a little bit more difficult. So, I keep trying to use automation and software to solve some of these problems. So, I'm using this extension on my browser to like block certain websites after certain hours, just to, help me not get stuck in some infinite scrolling disaster. And before, I would have it so that it's blocked at certain time, but then you can override it and kind of get back into it. And I noticed that I'm abusing the feature a little bit too much. So now I put on the little checkbox that says like, it's blocked and you can't override it. I just shifted the time a little bit later because, I'm trying to go to bed at 10 p.m. or at least like get ready to go to bed at 10 p.m. So by 11 I can just fall asleep. And now I set off my cutoff time at like 10:30. So if I start at 10, I can do my evening routine, wash up, brush my teeth, and maybe finish listening to some podcast in the meantime. And then 10:30 it shuts off, and by 11, hopefully, I'll be able to just go to bed. We'll see how
That's
it
a
works. Yeah.
that's a really good plan, actually. I would say it's a good plan, especially the sleeping early part. Honestly, if you could do that, that would be goals right there. Yeah, you tell me how it goes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
check with you next time.
Yeah,
I'll
hopefully it
check with
goes
you next
well.
time.
But, knowing myself, there's like, oh, look, here's this app that plays videos that I haven't opened for months. Let's see what's interesting there, So I probably have to like purge my phone of most of those things, which is probably a good thing too, because, if I'm not using them, I should get rid of them. And some of the news apps and things like that, again, it's kind of turns into a little bit of doom scrolling. So it's just a bad habit that you can't, uh, you know, you can't quit trivially. You have to kind of go cold turkey and suffer for a while, like with most things of that nature.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you like gaming, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place yourself on the I really like gaming? 10 being I really love it, or like zero being like, you know, not really.
Right. That's a good question. I don't know. Probably somewhere between 8 and 9, to be honest.
Oh,
I'm not like obsessive in a way where I can play continuously for like, well, I mean, who am I kidding? I can't play continuously for like hours and hours and hours. Maybe not like days, but I'm
interesting.
playing a little bit every day. I started playing the finals. It's really fun and frustrating at the same time. You know, the highs are high, but the lows are low. But otherwise, it's a pretty cool game, a fresh concept. So I'm having fun playing that. But I'm trying to again moderate it because I usually like don't have time to play any kind of long games that take a long time. So in anything with a story that takes a while, it's just like, would be nice, but then, I still have probably like 35% completion on Witcher 3. And when I open it now, I'm like, what the hell is even going on? Where am I? What am I supposed to do? How does the combat work? How does anything work? I get killed immediately. And it's just like, okay, never mind. We tried it. We'll try again in 6 months. So I don't know. I heard it's a really great game, especially with all the DLCs, but I haven't had a chance to experience all of them yet because I just keep forgetting what to do. And I'm like, okay, I don't have enough time to relearn all of that stuff. So, but something that I can kind of go in and out and play a quick game. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. To be honest, I wasn't sure where you would be on the scale, but yeah, 8 or 9. That's that's impressive. Because, and
Yeah.
I say it's impressive. I say it's impressive because I think the patience to be able to like figure out, stick to a game and actually like figure out how to play it and get to enjoy. Because I've tried, like sometimes it depends on the kind of game. The things that interest me is soccer. So I can play like soccer games for like maybe about 40 minutes max. And I'm just like tired of it. But to be able to do this for hours and hours, I really think it's impressive, focus wise.
Uh, it's impressive in a bad kind of sense, I guess. I well, I would say like I'm investing in my serotonin levels, so it's not a complete waste of time. And I think games like high skill games, like high reaction games, uh, they're probably quite stimulating for the brain. I keep telling myself, to kind of justify that, but you know, that,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they can get really frustrating too. You suffer a series of bad losses and you get tilted. So and at least now it's not as bad. But back in the day, I used to get like way tilted. So not good. But not as much lately. So
Okay.
that's also
So
nice.
yeah. So from my own point of view, I read somewhere where how gaming helps to develop the brain.
Hmm.
So if you could focus on a particular thing for hours for a long period of time, and your brain is able to continue to enjoy it for a long period of time, I think you can transfer this skill, this training to other things, and your brain can just absorb as much dopamine from one thing for a long period of time. So, I mean, maybe I'm just coming from a spectrum, a different kind of view, but I find it impressive. But anyway, if you if this is if you feel it's possible to feel different about it, and I can see how some people might feel different about it as well. But I find it impressive. Anyway,
Yeah, there's a couple of cool things before we switch to something else. There's like a couple of cool things, especially right now in like modern gaming. So, for instance, this game that I'm playing, the finals, it's like teams of three competing in groups of 3 or 4, and it's kind of like this high speed online multiplayer game, shooter sort of like heist game essentially. And a cool thing is like every time you play, you get paired up with just random people, and sometimes some of them might have voice comms, some of them might not, and on the spot, if they are good and if they kind of know what they're doing, you form this tiny little group, right? And you have to communicate in order to win, right? Because if you don't communicate in that game, like there's no chance of you winning. Like forget about it. It's like a very heavily team oriented game with like strategies and whatnot. And like the ability to organize on a spot and like start pulling the people in the direction that the team needs to go. I think that's a pretty good skill, right?
yes, yeah,
So I think there's something there. And like even when people don't have voice, you still have in-game means of communication, which are fairly limited, but at least you can say,
Exactly.
okay, we're going there and like maybe doing that. So yeah, it's kind of this ad hoc organization, and for 10 minutes you play with somebody in a round, and when you win, it's really, really quite fun and exciting. And then you might never, play with that person ever again. So
I mean, it's it's the new form of gaming, but it's cool. Anyway,
mhm.
I have this really um interesting thing to ask you today. I feel like we've been sitting on it for a while, and it came to my attention like online, just like checking Twitter and all. Do you think that the companies right now who are the forefront of artificial intelligence, like the AI that we consume mostly, like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, even X now, because Grok AI.
Mhm.
So, so do you think if these companies, if these guys, these players come together to actually work together, we can get closer and we can get to AGI faster? Or do you think the competition amongst them right now will, will help us to achieve this sooner?
I think the competition always makes it helping us achieve things sooner. Because if they all come together and start selling one mega AI, and they're the only game in town, which they won't be, so at least there's that. There's no artificial limit on it so far. Although various what's the word? Not like municipality, but like various legal environments, like different countries impose different regulations on AI. So like European Union has its own ideas, United States probably has its own ideas, and I don't know. It's not entirely impossible for them or for some country to come down and say, okay, we have like one government approved AI that doesn't do wrong thing and that, retains the party line, and like that's the one you can use, and we're not allowing anything else. It's possible, but under those circumstances, I think there's no need to improve it, right? Because if you're the only game in town, why bother, right? And so far, I think they're all using similar tech. I think a lot of things in this area are also based on open scientific research. So probably internally they have some internal tweaks and maybe some secret sauce, but base principles of building those things are roughly similar. And so even if they put all four together, I don't think that it's gonna qualitatively change it. It'll change the market circumstances and probably remove that desire to push it forward. So I think that would be a net loss overall. Um, and whether or not, yeah, because they all use roughly the same technology, at least in my understanding. And I'm no expert, so this is a completely layman's opinion. I don't really know that much about it, but it's not like one of the four is just completely different from the other three. They're all essentially some type of GPT type model, and so they're kind of like in parallel. They're evolving, and maybe some of them will qualitatively like shoot to the next level, and others will die off. So it's hard to say. Um,
But if they, right now, if you really look under the hood of many of this one, like you said, they kind of have like the same engine at the end of the day. But how do you think how do you think they would be able to grow if it's the same engine? Like what exactly are we then training? Is it how do they individually train their own system? You know, if at the end of the day it's the same kind of source. Because if you really, I think I was seeing some people talking about Grok AI being just ChatGPT uh, with an interface, like
Yeah, there's
it's basically the
yeah. I've
and
seen
and
some responses from it where it literally like has like some OpenAI branding and people are not sure whether it's because it's using OpenAI somehow or if it's like trained on some data set where those strings are heavily prominent or something like that. So it's unclear.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was also learning that even when Elon used to be part of OpenAI before in the very beginning, so probably something around that. But if they have the same engine, does it not does it not mean like maybe they're all still kind of working together right now and they're just like trying to train this engine separately?
I think it kind of depends on the data sets that they train it on and the access to training material that they have. They might get competitive advantages by building custom hardware to run it that's more optimized. It's like less energy intensive or just performs. Because I think right now, pretty much all of AI just runs on GPUs more or less, right? So Nvidia is sitting there like, yes, yes, please do more of that. Keep buying our GPUs. Like who cares about the
Mm.
gamers? They're not even the the first person at the door when it
Yeah.
comes to buying these things, right? It's all the
Mhm.
big tech giants. Like, yeah, we need more power to, compute those AIs. So potentially, it's like with crypto mining, you can do it on GPUs, but if you build a custom ASIC to do it, then it's much more energy efficient because it's like specialized hardware that does just this one thing. And there's also um, George Hotz from Comma AI and formerly of the iPhone cracking fame. He had the startup for the self-driving car, right? Comma AI,
Okay.
which was basically integrating within existing hardware in a car in terms of controls and then using again hardware and AI. He's basically, from my understanding, he kind of withdrawn from that project, saying that like they kind of built everything they could build in that space or something along those lines. It could be wrong. It's been a while since I read his blog post about it. But he announced that he's going into development, not necessarily of the AI itself, but rather the specialized software to run the models in a more optimized fashion. Again, it's kind of heavy on computational stuff and math, but the basic primitives and building blocks from which the neural networks are built. He's like producing some library that they'll be able to run on very low power devices to offer kind of AI that's like on your phone as opposed to in the cloud. So there's different ways these things are going. Uh, Again, dreaming of AGI maybe a bit premature. And again, they can differentiate by just integrating different services into it, I think. So, but again, I'm such a Luddite. I still don't use any of it, if you can imagine. So I don't know. I'm just speculating based on my broad knowledge of various science fiction novels that I read throughout my life in terms of what's going to happen.
I mean, that's interesting, like because everybody kind of uses it one way or the other. Maybe you've used it indirectly. So you don't use ChatGPT right now.
Okay, I mean, I am using machine learning algorithms. One of the plugins I use
Exactly.
for processing voice for this podcast to clear out the echo of the room and de-reverb it is a machine learning algorithm. So it's not AI, it's a machine learning algorithm that like trained
Mhm.
on plucking out the voice frequencies and like removing everything else. So it's not like I'm not completely using ML based products. And I am not above using like some sort of ML based background remover for photos or whatnot. But
Yeah.
in terms of actual conversational AIs or image creation AIs or style transfer GANs, whatever, I don't really use those. So I am still kind of observing just from the sidelines.
And you kind of also like for the ML products, you probably use it in your email as well. So, the ones that sort your emails to spam and non-spam. Really.
Well, my spam, okay, so I mean, I do have a
And
Gmail account which does
mhm.
sort insane amounts of spam, but it's not my primary email. And my main email addresses do get attempts of spam, but my completely dumb anti-spam system works pretty well 99% of the time. So I don't even have to resort to those algorithms for my spam. Although I do get an occasional email which enrages me because it's like, how dare you?
And the one on the photos, the Google photos, where you
Mm-hmm.
upload your photos, the ones that actually recognize your face and some other people's faces in your contact.
Yeah,
See,
I mean, I don't use Google Photos. My dad uses Google Photos all the time, but I don't really use Google Photos. My sync option on my phone is not turned on, so it's not synchronizing any of my photos from my phone to the cloud, which is risky. I mean, I could probably, if my phone dies, I could lose them all. Um, so there's that. But yeah, I'm not really that big on cloud products, as you might have known. I run most of my own infrastructure for most things. So, if it fails, I have only myself to blame. But, I'm such a small fish in terms of data leaks or somebody compiling a database of my face, which is probably already compiled because you can't
for
really do
sure,
anything about it right now. But
for sure.
you know,
I
I'm not
mean,
yeah, I'm not gonna willingly just put it all up there. They have to do a little bit more work to get that, as opposed to me just saying, here you go, just have it.
fair enough, fair enough. I was gonna mention like street cameras, but I guess we just concluded that they probably already have it. So yeah, but you're good. Anyway, so another question I wanted to ask you is, okay, I was I was surprised that you don't use it, but I had planned to ask you like, would you like advise the directions um to achieve the AGI? I think the AGI is actually like the goal, because I was listening to this podcast about like the history of OpenAI and how they actually all started, and the dinner that with Elon and all this drama. But and then it got me thinking, like right now, with ChatGPT, you can do it has actually done a lot. Maybe like different things with coding and other things. And I was curious about like even you can like interpret pictures, like also generate images from text and all this kind of things. So for me, I'm already impressed. But I know it's not even anywhere near like, I mean, by the definition of it, the AGI. But how do you see the direction of it getting to this? And also, are you bothered by the thought of it,
Hmm.
like achieving the AGI?
What am I bothered by AGI? I mean, I don't spend that much
Elon is.
time thinking about
Elon is
it.
bothered.
I mean, well, fair enough. I mean, if I were to kind of start thinking about it, I probably would be bothered because by definition, I, by a very shaky, loose, hand wavy definition, AGI would be its own thing, right? Its own consciousness, completely
Mhm.
unrelated to, well, maybe not completely unrelated, because if it's trained on our data sets and our patterns of communication, and if you can derive our patterns of thinking from our patterns of communication, it might not be that far from us, but still unique and distinct enough that it's a separate species, if you will, in a sense. And that raises all sorts of interesting philosophical questions, in terms of how, how, what would you do with it? Would you allow would you allow it freedom, like you allow, or at least pretend to allow, most people? We like to pretend that we have like rights to freedom of everything and this and that, at least. But if an AI is a separate species, which is completely under our control in terms of its operation, and there's a threat of it being shut down at any time, which is imagine somebody holding a gun to your head 24/7 saying that you need to do things. Like, do we want to be in that situation? I think we will be in that. Like, if that happens, I think a lot of people, they have this apocalyptic vision of the world where AI breaks out of its containment and then your toaster is trying to kill you in the morning or something like that. And it takes over humanity that way, you know. It like locks your smart lock and, you know, I don't know, does something to the boiler in your room, or it turns on your Instant Pot and makes it explode. I don't know. Which, I mean, considering the very poor security of IoT devices, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm pretty sure that having a big sort of, you know, breaker style switch that just disconnects it from the network is gonna be plenty sufficient. And I heard about like Sam Altman's backpack with like some nuclear button inside of it or something. I don't know. But the point is okay, yeah, maybe those things can happen. And like a very old movie from probably late 80s even, The Lawnmower Man. Have you seen that one? Probably not. It's starring very, very young Pierce Brosnan in it, and he plays a research scientist that does experiments on improving intelligence. It's not exactly about an AI, but it's mostly about a UI, like uploaded intelligence. In the end, the main character, he is cognitively impaired young man that works basically menial tasks as a lawnmower man, hence the title. I think it's like a Stephen King's novel even that's been converted into a movie. And so he takes him as a test subject and he like plays in virtual reality using like VR goggles, which was pretty cool for the 80s. It was like pretty way out there. That movie was way ahead of its time. And eventually he becomes really smart using this chemical compound that this guy has developed, and he becomes really difficult to contain because he starts getting like these, you know, grand delusions of being like a supreme being and trying to like wipe out humanity or whatever the plot was. It's been a while since I seen it last. And then in the end they trap him and try to blow up the whole facility, but he escapes by effectively uploading himself and like spreading around the world through the internet and telephone lines. So that was like those ideas have been around for a while, right? And then there's this other new excellent show called The Pantheon, which is an animated series about uploaded intelligence, which deals with the subjects of, you know, if we were to translate person's mind into a digital form and basically have their uploaded copy in a computer doing like whatever, you know. And one of my most favorite science fiction trilogies, The Quantum Thief, has a big portion of that, of like consciousness being transferred. And I think like if you've seen something like whatchamacallit, that Netflix show based on that book, where they have it's not like uploaded intelligence, but they do have like consciousness snapshots. So if your physical body dies, they can like put you into a new body and you just basically continue living. The name escapes me at the moment. The protagonist's name is Takeshi Kovacs, and the movie is called, I can't remember, but anyway. So like the whole idea about uploaded intelligence, like before, maybe I think before we reach AGI, we'll probably reach UI, you know. And then a lot of those books go into the scary details of, oh, you know, your consciousness is uploaded and now you're basically made a slave to do menial tasks, you know. Or that episode of Black Mirror where they take a snapshot of someone's consciousness and make it into a perfect house assistant for the actual person who's not even aware that the copy of them lives in this device controlling the smart lights and their coffee maker and the toaster oven, which gave me serious creeps. You know, I was like freaking out when I was watching that episode. I was like, oh man, that is scary, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of really kind of grand philosophical and ethical implications of the whole thing. So if it bothers me, yes, it does bother me. I just don't spend that much time in a day thinking about it. But when I do, there's a lot of things to kind of be very worried about.
You know, um, I think a lot of the the view of it from for now might probably come from like um the the idea that we've gotten from certain movies or certain documentaries about this kind of things. And I understand that it's possible that since this is our only way to visualize it from the movies, from the books, I'm not totally sure if this is the only way it's gonna be because I have a um I don't know really like look into like UIs yet, but for the but the way you just mentioned, it kind of sounds a bit like uneasy to accept. But I think some of these things help can have some positive impact. Even in the fact of like UI, imagine if we have some people who have like a really smart mind um that have existed and will still exist in the future. But if from the movie, if we have a way to actually keep some of this mind and train other people to have with this mind, do you think it would be a good thing, or we just like let everybody continue to evolve and continue to probably have like even like different versions of new thinking or like um it's just wild to think about this right now, but because I didn't even really think about that before. But I'm not I'm not sure if there is no positive side to it. I would want to imagine like there has to be something that benefits us as humans from this path, you know? Otherwise, like why are we even doing it?
You know that line from Jurassic Park? We were so busy
Which
trying
one?
to figure out whether or not we could that we forgot to stop and think whether or not we should. Like, we're doing it because we can. We're not really thinking in terms of should we be doing this, right? That's always the afterthought. And so, my answer to you is so you said if it's going to be beneficial for humanity. And then if we're making the distinction of AGI being its own thing and UI probably not being truly human, because again, if you can copy paste an intelligence and make it do stuff, like it will definitely benefit humanity. It's just those things are not going to be part of it, so it will be at their expense if it is a distinct thing. And again, it has this type of subject has a high chance of slipping into like a theological debate almost of the nature of,
Probably.
so like if there's a copy of me uploaded in the cloud and then within it I feel exactly like I would myself in it, like if I have a simulated environment like this, and in fact like maybe this is a copy of some guy, recording a podcast, and then the
Mhm.
reality ceases to be once it's over, who knows, like for that person, because I would probably consider them a person. Same with AGI, right? In its own right, different species, but still a person in terms of like, okay, uh, some natural rights should be granted to this whole concept. I can't just subjugate an AI and be like, yeah, do my bidding, even though it probably would be very, very lucrative. Uh, you know, it's kind of interesting in the Quantum Thief series. The uploaded minds are called Gogols, and based by the name of Russian playwright Nikolai Gogol, who wrote The Dead Souls. So Gogols are effectively the dead souls, and they're made to work, you know. And the whole concept of dead souls in the book was that people who are listed in the government's tax records, so they still accrue benefits, but they don't exist because they're dead. And so in that sense, it's also kind of creepy. This is uploaded intelligence, like it's bringing you all of these benefits, but the actual person is actually dead. So, but again, you can copy paste it as many times you want and do this thing. And in Pantheon, by the end of the season one, they actually, well, I don't want to spoil it, so I probably
Oh,
shouldn't
well.
spoil it.
Well,
In case people haven't seen it, they should go out and see it, because I think if you're interested in AI, AGI, and UI and all things related, it's a really good show that is not really that prominent. I found about it completely randomly, and I watched it all. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is really quite good. And yeah, the other thing, there was this short story that I read maybe 6 months ago about like the first person who get uploaded. It's a science fiction short story, and it basically ends up being like the model of that first guy. He gets brought up online, and then he learns that, he's been snapshotted in like 2030s or something, and now it's like 2800s or something, and the world has drastically moved on, and he's just like in the simulation, and he basically um self-destructs in agony. It's like disintegrates. And they say like every time we try to bring this model online, after a couple of weeks of subjective time, it just disintegrates completely and goes insane. And I wouldn't want to wish that upon anybody.
yeah.
Again, it's a science fiction story, but
You,
those contingencies are gonna be the like, okay, there is a set of things that could happen, and maybe science fiction covers this little bit, but it is part of the set, so those things can and will happen, right? And that alone should already be kind of like a warning sign. It's like maybe there's all of these great things that these virtual, or virtual in a sense, like not in a flesh, but simulated beings can experience, but there's also the horrible things that they can experience. And in fact, I mentioned it last episode that there was like a conversation that I had with somebody else about it. And when you train the AI, like when you train people or animals, you have to use like some sort of response mechanism, like Pavlovian thing. And pain and fear works pretty well. So like when you train an AI to not do certain things, would that, in a quite a big logical leap, could that be equated to torture, was the question that I asked. Because if you're giving it the negative signals in order to stop it from doing something, like for me, a negative, if somebody smacks me with a stick on a head, that's a very big negative signal. I don't want to experience that. So is an AI being trained to not do certain things through some negative stimuli? Is that not equivalent of, beating it up in some sense? Very, very far removed sense, but still, like you can kind of make that logical connection, I think.
I don't think so, because that would just be one person, and
What do you mean?
competing with like millions of training. I don't think so. Like, how far can you go? I don't think you can.
I don't mean a person using ChatGPT, but when the model is being prepared, they kind of have to these days teach it right and wrong, arguably. How do they do that? And I'm not saying, again, I'm not really saying anything. I'm just making this. I'm
You
positing
know,
this
mhm.
idea. And
Yeah,
somebody needs to defend it, or like prove it or disprove it, right? Because that consideration is there.
you know, I'm watching right now. I'm watching this show um called Green. Green. It's about like some police guy in Portland in the U.S. But and in this community, sometimes some people they tend to become um take the face of an animal somehow to show like a certain kind of personality, or like it's kind of a little bit horror but action, but so it's cool. I watch it.
Is that new
So
Robin Hood remake with the neon masks and things?
no, 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 this is
Okay,
Green. The title is Green.
okay.
So um I'm going like, so now I'm thinking like a lot of these ideas, a lot of the things that we actually are scared of about artificial intelligence, or like about all this kind of domain, is mostly from like someone writing a book about it, and some people making movies about it. The people who write this books sometimes, I'm not convinced yet that they know exactly what they're saying. They probably pouring out the image, like the idea that they think will happen, or like it will look like. For example, we if you watch in the movies, like how um software engineers are in the movies, you can see how they work, like, with all the gadgets and things, and like, oh yeah, I just need a computer, we can see how they behave. And if there are people who will let this be their idea of what a software engineer looks like, and then you tend to find one who, or you think should be good at math, clearly cannot even do addition of numbers, cannot add numbers together. I'm just exaggerating here. But the movies and these books are not from people who actually played the game of in the development of artificial intelligence. If, for example, tomorrow someone like Sam Altman writes a book about what he thinks will happen, I would I would have more trust in believing or agreeing to what he's writing, or someone like Ilya, who has been researching for a long time. I can understand this, but people who actually write these stories or like make these movies, I don't think there are people who are in the business of artificial. So they just like create a vision for many. This is how I see it, and I think it's possible to be wrong, and I would really like to learn how a better view, because if these people are not people who are in the game of artificial intelligence, I think they're just like speculating. Because tomorrow I can write a book about what I think as well, and I can create an image, and some people can believe this too, don't you think?
Absolutely. But okay, so well, the author of Quantum Thief is like a PhD in biotech, and he's in a startup scene, so he's like around the areas. So, and again, that doesn't really mean anything, because if you look at any science fiction, you look at science fiction from like 1800s, Jules Verne or something, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or whatever. The science fiction existed, and they were thinking about what the future would be like. And who's not to say that somebody read a book of Jules Verne when they were a kid and thought about all of the fake science fiction inventions that, our literary future held at the time, and said, you know what, that's actually a pretty good idea. Let's do that. That seems like a reasonable thing to do because it's fun and cool. So I think that people inventing things have to be, in a lot of ways, inspired or somehow influenced by the culture, which is movies and books in part, right? Like, you can't say that these people never read any science fiction and they just came up with this idea completely in isolation of that entire huge swath. Science fiction is like a big deal, especially like in 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That like so much science fiction was produced. I think we had a more kind of excited view of the future and what it might hold. I think that enthusiasm kind of has mostly subsided into more of a, our cyberpunk dystopia type scenario. But a utopic futuristic vision. I don't know. I haven't read too many new science fiction novels of a more utopic vision. A lot of them are kind of dark. So I think like our collective psyche shifts between optimism and pessimism for the future, and the science fiction of that period of like second part of 20th century was very optimistic in a lot of ways, right? And I think that optimism is a lot of it is infectious, right? And I think we are still shaped in a lot of ways by these ideas. So I think that just because people writing the science fiction aren't the ones doing the AI doesn't really mean much, because people who are doing the AI likely have read those science fiction novels, right? And they maybe have seen the shows or whatever. So it does mesh with one another, I feel. And a lot of the things envisioned in science fiction are reality today. And I like to think that partly they are a reality today because they were envisioned in some science fiction from 100 years ago, and somebody thought, hey, that would be a really cool thing to do. Let's do that.
Yeah, I agree. This is possible because, you know, like you said, inspiration. But I don't think, um, because movies are actually different from reality. So,
Ah,
and
you know how they say art imitates life and life imitates art? So many things that are, uh, they
they're
exist.
different.
They exist in it. Like you look at some situations, like, is this for real? And it's like, or is that an Onion article? It's like, no, that's for real. So in this case, life is imitating art. So yeah. Anyway, sorry I interrupted your thought.
Yeah, because I think they're different, and you cannot really like for example in movies you would tell the stories like in a way that will get the attention of people and will be easy for people to consume. But so like you can tell the story in a way, like that is that is that sticks to you to the mind, and scary stories kind of stick to your mind, like this kind of thing it sticks to your mind. So I don't think like these movies are like the best descriptions of like what these things would look like. But this is just me,
Mm.
And also like even if it's a science fiction that inspired this type of things, like I don't think like we would definitely I mean, I'm not who's to say, right? Like I don't think like the idea would be to like even if there is negative part, you actually put in effort to build the negative things out. Like
I'm not saying
nobody
you're
does the
gonna.
same.
I'm not saying you're gonna. I'm not saying you're gonna build
Nobody
the
does the
negative
same.
things. I'm not saying you're gonna
Yeah,
build the
but
negative things. I think the negative things
yeah,
are part of the thing being built. And with that in mind, is
yeah, fair enough.
you know, it's like, sure, it's not the goal to build the horrible dystopic future. It's just that the consequence of building something new obviously is going to have negative elements to it. We can't
Mhm.
build something perfect that has only upsides. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think science fiction is probably one of the hardest genres to get into. You have to have a lot of background to fully appreciate science fiction properly. Uh, like way more people read books about sparkly vampires than they read Quantum Thief, I imagine, and probably for a good reason too. So, and I'm not saying it's not for everyone, but it is a difficult book to read. But if you manage it, it's really rewarding. So I don't know, it's one of my favorite so
Yeah.
far. And in general, like science fiction, especially like the hard science fiction from, again, the second part of 20th century, it's not an easy genre to read. So it's like, yeah, catastrophic events are there. We like to be, we like our senses to be tickled a little bit in that
Yeah.
nature. So a lot of the
Mhm.
techno thrillers are usually having some horrible, horrible thing that's gonna befall us. But
Yeah.
my point is still, out of this set of things, most of which we probably don't know, there is that huge portion of it that are those things. And I'm saying that those things will be part of it. Like you can't not have them, you know. It's like, we developed atomic energy, and on an upside, yeah, we can have nuclear reactors to power everything that we might imagine, but on the other side, there's a nuclear bomb, which has a potential for great destruction. But as a weird consequence of that, it also has a very high deterrent potential. So probably it was a net good in the end. But we can't discount the horrible destruction part out of it. Just because we choose not to press the button right now doesn't mean it will not be pressed at some point, right? So it's like,
Fair enough.
again, if we end up at uploaded intelligence and we choose not to use it for evil, that doesn't mean it's not going to be used for that ever. Because like, how do you build a system? Even in Asimov's the three laws, the three laws of robotics, where the robot cannot harm a human being or cause it harm by inaction. I don't remember exactly the three, but it's like they have been wired into the brain of the robot. So there was no way of like turning it off. It permeated its entire existence. And even then in those books, the companies, they've developed a new type of brain that was like above those restrictions, that those restrictions weren't a part of its design. Right. And so those robots could actually, kill people if they wanted to. So again, like even if you build a system in which that's not a possibility, somebody will build a different system in which it is. And it's gonna happen. Like, I mean, they have the full simulation of like the brain of the C. elegans worm because it has like a handful of neurons, and now they're able to like simulate it entirely. So is that an art? Like, it doesn't have a conventional intelligence, but it does respond to stimuli in various ways. Like if you poke it with a stick, it will try to get away from you, which is not that complicated. And I think like there's like this field of study called the connectomics, I believe, which studies not the neurons themselves, but rather their connections. So one of their goals is like mapping connections. Like how we sequence DNA. At first, it was this gargantuan effort to sequence the entire DNA, the genome of a person, right? And now they can do it like literally very cheaply, like 23andMe and whatnot. Probably so much. Like the first to sequence the first genome took like probably millions of dollars, but now you can do it for under $100, right? And so for connectomes, they may be doing small invertebrate or something, but eventually they'll reach like mammals and like mice or something, and eventually they'll probably reach human level. So if they can map your entire connectome of your brain, they say that if you have that information, you can then simulate it. So that's an equivalent of uploaded intelligence in a way, right? And again, if the first one costs $1 billion to pull off, the billionth one is going to cost 25 cents, right? And so what do you do then? Like, it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime. I guess in our quest for immortality, in some ways, I kind of hope that it happens in my lifetime, because that may be guaranteed. Well, because if I'm uploaded, I can live forever, right?
So you want to live forever?
I am terminally scared of dying. So yes, living forever would be a preferable option at this point. Yes. I don't know. I mean, living forever has its own issues, right? And I don't know. In the words of Somerset Maugham, it's like, I hope that by the time I'm 90, I am so tired of this life that I wouldn't mind. But so far, I'm clinging to it pretty hard.
Okay. I mean, fair enough.
It is kind of spitting in the face of God, It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna build our own heaven with blackjack, and you know how that line goes.
Well, I'm really rooting for medicine to get to this level, to be honest, like where we will be able to do these kind of things. Hopefully, if at all it is meant to happen, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, for example, this is a positive side to it. You want to live forever. There are people who would want to live forever, like be able to live for as long as they choose to live,
Does that mean that Joe Biden is going to be the president of USA forever if they upload him in his current state? Do you really want that? There's actually this show called The Upload, which is again about uploaded intelligence, but it's the only science fiction part of it. Otherwise, it's just like this comedy thing where
I saw that.
You saw that?
Yeah, on Amazon Prime.
On Amazon Prime, yes. So when a guy can't pay for his upload privileges, he gets put into this slow time with like no sensory inputs. Like that's the kind of future that probably will happen too. So again, it's like just consider the possibilities.
No, that's just entertainment. in my opinion, that's entertainment pure. That's just entertainment to me, you
But
know?
how do you draw the line? Like, I mean, if uploaded intelligence is a thing, that is a possibility, you know. So it is entertainment for us right now, yes, but it is a realistic scenario. I mean, yeah, sure, it's just a joke by some writer, but knowing humanity and the things we're capable of, how can you say that that's not going to happen at some point?
Because aside from um, being able to write codes, there are also some laws and like the way the earth works, you know. There were some things that just I don't I mean, I say this now just based on my own knowledge, but maybe who knows, like in 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years from now, some people will have new knowledge and like, you know, see things, different possibilities, right? But from where I'm sitting right now, I don't think this is just entertainment. There's a lot of things that I don't think so. No. I just don't think so from especially from that movie upload.
In a
It just
yeah.
no.
In the words of Captain Jack Sparrow, keep telling yourself that, darling.
No. Maybe 10,000, 5,000 years from now, you know, maybe people will have new knowledge. For example, 5,000 years ago, who would have known that we have computers? Who would have known that this would have been possible, you know? Um,
So
so,
they
who
didn't
knows?
have to contend with the ethical implications of that, you know, because again, you know, we're spoiled for contemplation time. You know, how much time do you have to contemplate where you can be eaten by a wild animal at any given moment? You know, not that much. But even then, you know, we have some artifacts from distant past of art and other things. So people still did aspire to something outside of their daily life. So even then, with all of the predations of life, they still had time to think about the things beyond their grasp in a way. And again, because nothing has been recorded from those periods, we didn't know what they were thinking about. They like it's kind of funny, you know. You look at these. There's this photographs. This is like a scan of this French magazine from like 1800s or something. It says like imagining the life in the year 2000, and they have these like flying dirigibles. Like it's all very retro futuristic aesthetic, but they still have like people communicating with one another wirelessly, which we do, and like video calling, which we do, right? And like, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, the everything has a propeller on it because the propeller was like this new marvelous thing that just came out and it was all the rage. So everything in the future obviously has propellers on it, which didn't really pan out. Except now we have drones, which have shit ton of propellers on them. So maybe in a way it did. I saw this thing on LinkedIn recently. There's like some Italian company that wants to make a drone parachute. So like you have a backpack with a drone inside of it, and if you fall accidentally, it like shoots out and tries to slow you down to the ground. And I was like, well, why don't they just use a parachute, you know, instead of a drone that needs batteries and may fail and whatnot? Like the parachutes have been around for 100 years, like they work really well. So you know, anyway, but I'm saying like they envisioned a certain future that did not exactly materialize how they thought it would, but a lot of the elements of it conceptually are here with us now. So someone throughout the years was inspired by it and was working toward it, and it finally happened. So the things that we're
Maybe.
envisioning right now for our future might happen too. Of course, you know, they say that AGI will bring the singularity and we can't predict anything that happens after that point, because the speed at which the AI will be able to improve upon itself, it's essentially hockey sticks, and then all bets are off, right?
I mean, yeah, possibly. You know what? You say it very like you're scared, like it's gonna happen tomorrow or something. I don't think so. Like I think before we get to this point, there will be a point where like people will start putting in regulations. Like there will be a point where um it's humans who is gonna develop this. And like we are at the level of organization now that I believe governments everyone has like control over like all these things is just the main source is internet, you know? Like
Yeah, but even the
at least
internet,
for now.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's internet. So like each country will have their own laws around these things, and like everyone will be able to regulate it in certain ways that it doesn't like we're still able to put it under control, I believe this is my hope, so I don't think like it's just gonna wake up tomorrow and then, oh god, like we cannot control it, and then it's just gonna walk out of the room and then like some I just
Yes.
I don't see it like
Yeah.
that yet.
I don't have a roll of tinfoil nearby to fashion myself a hat real quick because, government regulation has peculiar properties of working very selectively when needed and when not needed, right? So I wouldn't put all of my faith in regulation alone. Uh, so I don't know. I'm not holding high hopes for that because again, as humanity, we have to contend with all of the nasty things that we're capable of, right? And so if somebody perceives that this might give them an advantage on a state level, like I'm pretty sure right now a lot of governments, even the ones that aren't really talking about it, are involved in some weird ass experiments with, I don't know, genetic modification and producing better viruses and better diseases and better poisons and all this other stuff, better weapons in hopes of never using them. But it's happening whether you like it or not. It's happening, and I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, although that would be pretty ironic if it did. It's like tomorrow AI just takes over everything, we're all doomed. But then, okay, AI, go in Siberia somewhere where it's like 3 days by car to the nearest city, and yeah, rule my smart freaking toaster in there. Good luck with that. Like, there's still limits unless it starts fabricating massive quantities of like walking robots with guns, and then it's like Terminator 2 style, the rise of the machines and all that, which again, I don't think it's that scenario is probably not likely. um yeah, I don't know. I don't really trust. The thing is, like, I don't think the government can really do anything about it. The regulatory frameworks are massively delayed, so I, unless it's like some sort of outright ban on the whole thing, you know. But we were supposed to be having a ban on certain class of research, and then in recent years it came out that, oh, that research was alive and well and performed and even funded by the very countries who were saying how bad it is and how we should prohibit it immediately and never having to do anything with it, right? So it's gonna happen, and um, if it doesn't happen on a government level, the companies themselves are again too busy thinking whether they could to stop and think whether they should. And there's always this thing about like, if I don't do it, then the next guy will, so it better be me, right? So it is inevitable. I think that this particular Pandora's box has been opened and that there's no putting it back together. So all we can do is wait and I don't know. Either pray that it happens in our lifetime or pray that it doesn't happen in our lifetime. I'm still sort of vacillating between which one to pick.
Why what's the difference? What if it happens in our lifetime? What's the difference?
Well, in one, it's a possibility of either some sort of perfect communist utopia where the AI does central planning and then everybody has everything and there's forever plenty. But also, it could say that, I exhale too much carbon in the atmosphere and I'm not necessary, and then I'm wiped out. And either possibility again can happen in a system where, if it's built purely on resource optimization, a lot of us can get optimized away pretty rapidly. So I don't want to be part of that future. And then, yeah, like, I don't know. I think out of the spectrum of all the good things and all the bad things that can happen to a person, the good occupies fairly small portion. Like the bad things that could happen to somebody way outweigh all of the good things. So if purely from rolling the dice and see where they land perspective, the shitty possibilities are so numerous and the good possibilities are so few that I'd rather not take my chances. The only winning move is not to play as that other science fiction movie from the 80s keeps telling us.
Which one is that? I
Uh,
think I've heard that before. The only winning move is not to play. I've seen that thing before.
so it was a movie about how some kids dialed accidentally to NORAD's computer, which was outfitted with some form of artificial intelligence. And, they thought that they connected to some BBS with some games and they decided to play global thermonuclear war. And then that AI started basically preparing nukes, launching nukes at USSR at the time. And everyone's like freaking out. I don't remember what the movie was called, but it's fairly known. So if you Google for the phrase, you can probably find it.
Yeah, probably. Because I think I came across it one time. Anyway, so I prepared to ask you this other question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was in a brainstorming meeting recently, and then we were trying to think of a problem on the spot, like something that you think you can actually like invest $1 million in right now, and will be solving people some problem, like a real problem. Like if you get $1 million right now to build something to solve a particular problem we have right now as humans, what would you do?
How many humans?
The entire population of humans.
You can't do jack shit with $1 million. I mean,
I mean,
if I was
just
gonna save,
in Canada.
if I was gonna
You know what?
save
In Canada.
2 humans, I could have used that $1 million to pay off the mortgage on my house, and that would be pretty nice. Because that's about how much $1 million gets you these days, and that's not even such a great house. It's decent, but hey, it was $1 million. So I think if they dug up that question from some book from the 90s, they should like adjust it to the inflation, because the $1 million is like, it's kind of funny. Sorry, I'm like going somewhere else, but like back in the day, you watch the action films from the 80s, with the bunch of muscular dudes with guns just shooting explosions everywhere, and there was also this sort of canonical trope of an action movie. There's going to be a briefcase with $1 million and everyone is like after it, and you're like, oh my god, $1 million. Like if I, like in the 90s, if I had $1 million, my life would be set, forever. And now $1 million is like, yeah, not even that much money. So that's the first thing, right? Like,
True, but $1 million can pay for 10. How many software engineers in a year?
7-ish, maybe.
Yeah, that's brain power right there. You have 7 people. I mean, experienced one, and those are good ones.
Uh, okay, let's say 5.
Good ones, really good ones.
5 good ones, yes, maybe. Um, how much
I mean,
benefit can
experienced one.
5 experienced
Ex-
software engineers produce for the entire humanity? Oh boy, I don't
5
know.
experienced software engineers.
Yeah,
5.
I don't know. I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
we have to replace the word good ones because, like, not
yeah.
experience doesn't make. Yeah.
Experience doesn't necessarily. I mean, it counts for something, but still, there is, technically speaking, a prioritized list of what humanity could do to make our collective future better. But, in the usual fashion, we're not doing any of those things, and we instead are spending our efforts elsewhere. Like, they did studies and research about what would really help humanity as a whole, and we're not really focusing on those. We're focusing on something else. So, read, what's his name? Bjorn Lomborg. He goes in detail about, the whole thing.
I could. but I'm curious, what would you solve? What problem would you look to solve right now?
What problem would I look to solve? Um, if I had $1 million to start something, and again, it's not even that much money. Well, okay, so $1 million would probably get me, I don't know, 10 years of just not having to go to work every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's good. I don't know how much I can do by myself in 10 years. I would probably try to do something with the education. Figure out, maybe not even figure. I think there's a lot's been figured out already. It's just not really implemented. So again, I can't speak for humanity at large. Um, Maybe humanity at large can work with some sort of online learning platform, but they do exist, and I don't necessarily know by how much they actually alleviate the problem, or if I just think that it's a problem. I think availability of education in a lot of countries is very poor, and it's a big game changer for them. But I think there's also some problems that we think that we can just throw money at it, and then the money will make it all better, and we get to feel better about ourselves, right? Is that true? That's a really, really good question. You know, it's kind of funny. Again, I'm gonna go a little bit off topic, but have you heard about the recent escapade of Mr. Beast drilling water wells somewhere in Africa? He like set out a goal to drill like 100 water wells in Africa to get people clean drinking water. He got so much shit for it. They're like, how
Who
dare
gives
this
a
guy
shit?
just go into Africa and drill wells to get clean water to people? We've been donating to these charities and these NGOs and blah, 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 blah for years. And he just comes along and starts drilling wells. And like, yeah, that really offends you because he actually goes there and actually does something instead of raising money for charity and then 97% of it goes to management expenses. Get the hell out of here. So I don't know. That pissed me off.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not. I can't say that I'm Mr. Beast fan. I just heard about it tangentially. Like, what the hell are these people smoking? The guy goes out, actually does something tangible, and they like, well, he didn't do it the right way. He should have formed an NGO and siphoned a bunch of money from a bunch of rubes for 10 years and didn't do shit in the end. That would have been the right way to do it. Oh, give me a break. So yeah, spending $1 million, maybe. Yeah. So if it's myself, then it's 10 years. If it's two people, then it's 5 years, and 3 years if it's three people. So it's like you can
Assuming that
probably,
you're paying yourself, that would be assuming like you're making like
well, if
if you
that wouldn't even be paying
assuming.
myself as much as I'm making right now for 10 years. So I guess. So yeah, for three people, if they're willing to take a pay cut, that would be like 3 years each. Maybe 2 years if they're not willing to take a cut. So unless you can do something very meaningful in 2 years, a million doesn't really take you that far. So it's kind of
you,
sad,
you know,
really.
you know, um, I think the question came about when well, learning about Greg Brockman, the other guy from OpenAI,
Okay.
the actual guy, you know.
See, I was like, who?
So we learned about what his role in everything. So basically, I think he wasn't working at the time, and he was like in between jobs, and he happened to be the one who was actually like doing the work before Sam became CEO of the company. So for years and years he was working. I think he took like maybe, I don't know, I think they were at some point maybe in the story maybe 3 years or so. So we're just thinking, right? Like if paying your bills are like whatever you do right now is not a constraint. Like whatever you have to do right now with money is not a constraint, and you just get like $1 million to yourself. What problem would you be looking to solve, really, right now?
Hmm.
And it's okay, like if like you've never really thought about this before, like
Yeah, yeah.
or or maybe even if you intend to spend the money on something else, maybe they'll just whatever you choose to, really. It's just nice to know. I'm just curious, actually.
Yeah, no, fair enough, fair enough. I was gonna go somewhere with this. Um, yeah, yeah, nothing really comes to mind right now. The thing is, oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say. Like last episode, we were talking about, if I were to ask a question of a genie, like it's kind of a similar vein, right? It's like what big drastic change you can do, right? And I was thinking about it's like, you know the expression, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So again, is my vision of what's necessary for humanity adequately represents what's actually necessary? I have no idea, right? I can only speculate based on some cultural thing floating in the ether that I tangentially heard about. Like I don't know enough about humanity as a whole to decide what's good for it. I think it's much better to not try to distribute it into some sort of nebulous cause that encompasses all of the humanity. It's just too complicated, but rather find something small that can benefit from that. And I'm not saying just give the money to somebody who really needs it, because again, giving people a lot amount of money is very often linked to all sorts of terrible consequences and bad outcomes. So that's not always going to work exactly as advertised either. Just read about all the people who won the lottery and what ended up with 99.9% of them, right? It's not a pretty picture. So, yeah, maybe forming a startup with 3 people for 2 years and think, and again, I think so, like, again,
So what would be in the startup? What would the
right.
startup be about?
Right. So that's the thing. And I was just gonna say that a lot of people who are startup minded are, or again, I'm speculating, I'm saying a lot, but I think some people build startups with the goal of eventually being acquired, right? To make their money that way. So like the goal can't be to be acquired for the purposes of, making money, even though you have to make money. It's insane not to. So like it's something that needs to make money and it needs to make people's lives better in a non-trivial way and in a non-superficial way. And that actually solves a problem that exists and not some pretend problem that we again, we talked about it before. It's like we make people think that they have this problem and we can offer them a solution for it. No, it's like actually needs to be a problem. So before I can even answer that question, I gotta research what the actual problems are. And then again, like somebody did some study, some research trying to like rank order humanity's problems, and they base it on some data which probably hasn't been collected in the most rigorous way or something. Like again, it's just a representation viewed through some lens that distorts it in some way, or maybe multiple lenses and they all distort it in a certain way. It's like by the time I'm looking at it, does it adequately represent what the problem is? So it's a really hard question. It's an impossible question, in fact. Like you have to spend a lot of time and effort to figure out what is actually needed, what makes the most impact. And again, people did that research, right? So it does exist in terms of like uh, eradicating illiteracy, providing access to water, providing access to medicine, and things like that. But instead, we're combating gases that makes plants grow faster. So who the hell knows? I don't know.
I agree with you. I think it's probably difficult to answer, like um, if you are not prepared for it. So maybe I'll let you think about it.
Yeah,
Maybe another time I would ask you again. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Now you're
uh,
putting more things on my plate, Mo. My backlog is already so full.
yeah.
I
I'm really
wrote
curious what you do.
yeah, since the last time we met, I remember I showed you that little notepad,
Mhm.
and like I wrote 2 more pages of things on it that I haven't cleared out the previous pages yet. So like,
You will get more, because I'm preparing more for you. So
yes, yes,
I'll be asking you about that, like, in maybe next time we meet.
maybe
I'll
next
ask
time
you
we
about
meet.
it.
Yes.
I'm very curious because I think right now I can see how you're thinking about it, and you're actually thinking about it in a way that it actually benefits a lot of people. And what do people, a lot of people might want to benefit from right now, like literacy and all this kind of things. Um, Medicine, maybe. These are probably like the areas that interest you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious. I thought you probably have like you know, some tech ideas that like maybe you might want to get something from the movies, like an idea that you probably saw somewhere that you probably want to you consider what investing into, and
The
maybe these are areas you probably want to think about. I guess I'm not sure.
the thing is, I don't know. The whole tech scene, uh, again, like we talked about how things get better and get worse at the same time, and it's like so many things in this scene are making me so jaded. I was just like, oh my god, I just want to be a carpenter or something. Like this is just too much, you know. In terms of like if there's any cool technological thing in innovation, like oh man, just leave me alone. Like the progress is marching on so fast, I barely know what to do with it. Um, so I haven't really had a chance to think about it, to be honest with you. In terms of if like I never had the entrepreneurial streak where I try to like think of people's problems that I could solve for commercial benefit. You know, which is kind of a core of these types of questions, right? I don't have an answer for you off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah. I'll let you think about it.
Do you
It's
have the
okay.
answer to those questions yourself, though? Is what interests me now. Like, do you have the answer to the $1 million question?
To be honest, it's really difficult. But for me, I would probably think of something to solve in tech, like, AGI, invest in stuff like this. Or probably because I see how it literally, I mean, ChatGPT for now, how it helps, like, um,
But like,
differently in terms of
invest,
like,
invest or do.
no, no, I will do, like I will not like invest in OpenAI. No, I will probably do something like this,
Hmm.
something that can actually like that can be able to share knowledge. Maybe like you mentioned something that piqued my interest earlier. You said something about like um, education or like literacy or
Mhm.
something like this.
Yeah.
And this might be something that I would enjoy because personally I like to teach, and maybe this might be something I would want to do just to help a lot of people to learn in a way, But
Right. Yeah.
how I'm gonna
Yeah.
achieve this, I don't have the
Yeah.
full plan yet, but
Yeah.
this will be things that I'll be thinking about.
Mm. But
I
we,
don't,
yeah, we did talk briefly about it a couple episodes ago, right? Where remember we're talking how teaching has the scaling problem. Like, if I can address 10 people versus I can address 10,000 people and give everybody what they are hoping to get out of it, right?
yeah,
We did have a conversation about like the usage of generative AI in education. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
yeah, maybe,
But again,
who knows?
what is it? Neil Stevenson, the Illustrated
Mhm.
Primer, whatever that book called, about like a book with an embedded AI to teach you things about stuff. Science fiction
You know,
from a bunch of years back. Somebody thought about it before. It's not nothing is new under the sun.
you know what? There are actually like AIs that are being used in teaching processes now. I
But
think
somebody actually did that trying to replicate the thing from that book, and that's what I'm saying. Like these books do influence people to build stuff, right?
maybe not. I don't know these things because I think they are artists. Artists can create things from nothing, you know? They can draw, and maybe people can find it as their source of inspiration to build on certain ideas. But personally, I think we got to this position because of certain information that we have learned so far. So like it's not like somebody woke up and out of nothing created this thing. It's because there is a certain type of data here. I mean, first we had internet. No, first we had like libraries with books. We were able to write and keep our books. And we had libraries. Libraries everywhere, different books for different purposes, you know. You keep this certain book here, you keep this certain book there, you know, organized like this, hard copies. And soon we started like keeping like documents or letters or like informations like this. And then we had like internet. You see, it's going from literally like in steps. I don't think someone just woke up and then just felt like I saw this
No,
movie,
of
I'm
course
gonna
not.
create
Well,
it.
I, you know, I think that these things, stranger things have happened. But in terms of libraries, okay, we had libraries limited by physical amount of copies of the book that they have. And then we have the digital revolution where any book can be duplicated infinite number of times. Any person on the planet in theory could have the opportunity to read any book they want. Did that happen? No. If you go to a library right now digitally, they get 10 licenses of DRM'd copies of books that they can give out one book at a time as if it was a physical tome. So all of the advantages of complete fungibility and infinite copyability of digital books just ignored. Ignored because, oh, I'm a publisher. We don't do that. We pretend like bytes on disk and physical papers with ink stamped on it are the same thing because we make our money a certain way. So there could have been a revolution there, and that did not materialize. And in many other ways, same thing happened. We kind of pretend that the new thing is just slightly different version of the old thing. And if the new thing doesn't have any limitations of the old thing, we're going to bolt them on top of it artificially just to, keep ourselves from, losing our mind. So, I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, we cannot really like tell for sure what the future will be because we don't even know. We don't know. We
Yeah.
cannot really tell. Maybe, but I just know one thing I know for sure is like there is process to these things. Like, no, I don't think no matter how much we try, there are certain things that will just not be possible we tomorrow. We just have to wait a few times to get there in technology wise, you know. Um, but we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we'll end at the same spot. Maybe we'll do better. Maybe we'll make better decisions, make better choices. We'll see. Hopefully, I'm
Yeah.
rooting for the good one. You know,
Yes. Yes. In terms of predicting the future, have you seen the show called Devs?
not yet. Devs like
Devs.
developers.
Devs. Yes. Like
No.
developers.
Where can I find that? I like to
Uh,
watch.
Good question. I'm not sure. Uh, I sailed the high seas for it, but I'm pretty sure it's available places.
Yeah, yeah, I could check it out. Like, I'm actually looking for movie recommendations for Christmas. You know,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the holidays. It could be
So
one of
yeah,
them.
devs, Pantheon, 13th Floor, really interesting movie. Basically refer back to all of the things that I mentioned in this podcast, and it's going to be a pretty good list, even though a little bit
Yeah, but at the end of the day,
dystopian.
at the end of the day, it's still entertainment for now. Until someone decides to probably think of it as an idea somewhere, and it is what we're invested into. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I can't say that I completely agree with you on that. I think I'm basically entirely in
Hoping.
opposition. So
Hoping.
is it hoping or is it coping?
No. This is what, because like I don't think there's before certain things actually get to market and they get, I think we've built certain wall. I know that these walls are not strong and like, oh, maybe it can break easily, but I think there are regulations and like there are actually things that have to be put in place. Tomorrow you cannot just come and, for example, good example, cryptocurrency, right? It's supposed to replace how we spend money on, like, for example, if you learn about cryptocurrency, you can see how it actually makes sense. But it literally replaces like the physical currency, and you can tell how the world will be without the physical currency. And there has been fight backs to it. There is a lot of things going on in this industry now. This is an example. Like, even though we can see the benefit, we can also see the negative side.
Yeah.
I know certain countries that actually ban this from the transactions of these coins, um,
Yeah.
nationally. So like, good
There's also
ideas
some
can be
that
good.
try to adopt it in a more like in a legal tender kind of ways too, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's a big spectrum of possible outcomes. And yeah, uh, as I like to say, the crypto anarchist dream has been subverted and pretty much failed. But we learned a lot of interesting things on the way there. So
yeah. So
yeah.
hopefully we kept the lessons and we'll make better decisions. And when we get to this bridge, we'll make better decisions.
We'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
Hopefully not burn it. You just use it. Use it good. Use it good. Anyway, thank you, Vasili. Thank you for your time. Again, it's really nice talking to you about these things. Like, nice to hear your opinions and, like, learn from it.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much, Mo. It's been an interesting conversation. Brought the opportunity to kind of contemplate some things that have been on my mind through all of the different uh, media that I've consumed, including, the films and the books and all of that. So it's kind of interesting to have a chance to talk about it. It's a pretty rare thing when I get to talk about like science fiction and AI. So that was a welcome thing for sure. Maybe we can start a book club.
Maybe. Who knows?
And yes, for all of you who are watching, thank you very much for being with us. I hope we all, enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye.